AI was supposed to replace developers. It didn't. In 2023, companies started making a bet, a very expensive, very confident bet. The idea was simple. AI could write code. And if AI could write code, you did not need as many developers. So companies cut headcount, froze junior hiring, redirected billions toward AI tools, and called it efficiency. But here is the problem. 2 years later, the code is buggier. The security holes are deeper. The engineers still working are spending half their time reviewing what the AI got wrong. And the companies that bet on AI replacing developers are quietly discovering they may have created a problem bigger than the one they were solving. This is not about AI being bad. This is about what happens when an industry misreads what AI actually does and then builds an entire financial strategy around that misreading. You see, in October 2024, Google CEO Sundar Pichai made a statement that got headlines everywhere. More than a quarter of all new code at Google was now being generated by AI, then reviewed and accepted by engineers. That sounds like a revolution. And it was used as one. Investors took it as confirmation. Executives shared it in board meetings. The narrative had legs. If Google was generating a quarter of its code with AI, why were other companies still paying for large developer teams? But here is the part of that statement that got less attention, reviewed and accepted by engineers. The AI was not replacing engineers. The engineers were still there. They just had a new job, reviewing AI output before it shipped. And as you will see, that job turned out to be significantly more complicated and significantly more expensive than anyone predicted. The belief that AI would reduce developer headcount was not just a talking point. It became operational policy at major companies. Intel cut its workforce by more than 35,000 employees across 2 separate rounds of layoffs in less than 2 years. Amazon used its internal AI assistant, Amazon Q, to cut Java upgrade times from roughly 50 developer days down to hours, and framed it as saving the equivalent of 4,500 developer years. Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff announced the company would hire 0 new software engineers in 2025. Klarna froze developer hiring entirely. These were not small signals. This was a coordinated industry move. The logic was clean on paper. If AI can write code faster, you need fewer people writing code. Simple math. But software is not just writing code. It is debugging code that breaks in production. It is understanding why a system behaves unexpectedly under load. It is catching the subtle security gap an AI tool never thought to check for. And this is exactly where the math started to fall apart. When AI tools generate code, they generate it fast. That is the appeal. A developer can produce working output in seconds instead of hours. Productivity numbers go up. Demo videos look impressive. Executives get excited. What does not show up in the demo is what the code looks like 6 months later. GitClear analyzed over 211 million lines of code changed between 2020 and 2024. Duplicated code blocks rose 8-fold. Refactoring, the process of cleaning and improving existing code, dropped from 25% of development activity in 2021 to less than 10% by 2024. That means code was being written at record pace and cleaned up less than ever before. This matters because software is not a product you finish. It is a system you maintain. Every piece of fragile, unreviewed, duplicated code that ships today becomes a problem someone has to solve tomorrow. That someone costs money. That delay costs money. And researchers increasingly call this AI technical debt, a hidden invoice that compounds faster than traditional shortcuts because no individual made a conscious decision to cut corners. The AI just generated and moved on. But the real damage was not the code quality. It was what the code was doing to the systems underneath it. Speed without oversight does not just produce messy code. It produces exploitable code. Stanford researchers found that developers using AI coding assistants wrote significantly less secure code than those who did not. That finding alone would be concerning. But the second finding was worse. Those same developers were more likely to believe their code was secure. The AI did not just introduce vulnerabilities. It made the person using it confident the vulnerabilities were not there. That is a different kind of problem. You can fix a bug you know about. Veracode's 2025 research across more than 100 language models found that AI-generated code contains nearly 3 times more security vulnerabilities than human-written code, with a 45% failure rate on benchmark security tasks. And this was not a problem limited to weaker models. Larger AI models performed no better than smaller ones. This is not something the next model release will fix. It is structural, and this is where it becomes expensive. At the enterprise level, Apeiro's research across Fortune 50 companies found that by June 2025, AI-generated code was adding over 10,000 new security findings per month across the repositories they studied. That is a 10 times increase in 6 months. Every one of those findings requires a human to review it, triage it, and decide whether it is a real threat. The AI was generating code. The engineers were now working second shift, managing what the AI left behind. Now, here is where things get stranger. While companies were racing to automate development, one startup had already run a version of this experiment, and it collapsed spectacularly. Builder.ai marketed itself as a revolutionary AI platform. It raised more than $450 million from backers including Microsoft, SoftBank, and the Qatar Investment Authority, with a valuation touching $1.5 billion. Its pitch: an AI assistant called Natasha that could build custom apps automatically, no human developers required. Behind the interface, 700 human engineers were manually writing the code. Former executives sued the company, claiming they were fired for raising concerns about the deception. Bloomberg later reported the company had inflated its revenues through circular transactions with an Indian tech partner, overstating its actual numbers by a factor of 4. The company filed for bankruptcy in 2025. A federal investigation followed. The Builder.ai story is not just a fraud case, it is a stress test of the core assumption. The assumption was that AI could independently handle software development at scale. What Builder.ai found, and tried to hide, was that you still needed the humans. You just stopped paying them properly and stopped telling investors about them. But what about the companies that adopted AI tools transparently, invested properly, and expected genuine returns? MIT's 2025 study on enterprise AI, the Gen AI Divide, reviewed over 300 publicly disclosed AI deployments and interviewed executives across industries. The conclusion was not subtle. 95% of enterprise AI pilots delivered no measurable financial return. Over 80% of organizations had piloted tools like Copilot or ChatGPT. Nearly 40% reported deployment, but those deployments improved individual productivity, not company-level performance, and only 5% of custom enterprise AI tools ever made it to production. The rest stalled in what researchers called pilot purgatory. Here is what that means in practical terms. A company buys an AI coding tool. Individual developers feel faster. Output volume increases. Leadership sees green on the dashboard. But underneath, the code review burden is growing. The security exposure is widening. The technical debt is compounding. And when finance looks for the savings on the balance sheet, they are not there. The productivity gains were real at the individual level. The costs were real at the systems level. And the systems level is where businesses actually run. AI was supposed to reduce work. It created a second job, fixing AI mistakes. But the biggest consequence came later, and it had nothing to do with code. Companies were not just buying AI tools. They were also quietly making a different decision. Stop hiring junior developers. If AI could handle entry-level coding tasks, why invest in training new talent? Entry-level tech hiring at the 15 biggest tech companies fell 25% from 2023 to 2024, according to a Signal Fire report. In the U.S., programmer employment fell 27.5% between 2023 and 2025, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, found that junior employment at AI adopting companies dropped by 9 to 10% within 6 quarters of AI implementation, while senior employment remained virtually unchanged. Computer science graduates now face a 6.1% unemployment rate, significantly higher than the national average. A survey of hiring managers found 70% believed AI could already do the jobs of interns, with 57% saying they trusted AI output more than the work of a recent graduate. This is where it stops being just an economics story and starts being an industry architecture problem. Junior developers do not just write code. They become mid-level developers, then senior developers, then the engineers who review, maintain, and oversee complex production systems. That pipeline takes years to build, you cannot fast-track it. And right now, companies are cutting the intake valve while simultaneously creating systems that will require significantly more skilled oversight to maintain. Forrester projects a 20% decline in computer science enrollment as students respond to the declining job market signals. Fewer students entering computer science today means fewer mid-level engineers available in 5 to 10 years. This is the moment when AI-generated code, requiring expert oversight, will be everywhere in production, and the pool of people qualified to provide that oversight will have quietly shrunk. The industry is saving money on salaries today by dismantling the training pipeline it will need tomorrow. Step back and look at the full picture. Companies believed AI would write code, and they would need fewer developers. What actually happened was this. AI wrote code faster, but that code needed more reviewing, introduced more security vulnerabilities, accumulated more technical debt, and required continuous human oversight to be safely usable in production systems. The productivity gains were real but narrow. The costs that followed were broader and less visible. A perception gap emerged where developers reported feeling 20% faster, while actual measurements showed them 19% slower when using AI coding tools. The speed felt real. The output quality was the hidden invoice. Meanwhile, the companies that cut junior hiring to save on labor costs have quietly handed the maintenance of increasingly complex AI-generated code bases to a smaller, more senior, more expensive workforce, with no one coming up behind them. And the builders who promised AI would eliminate the need for developers? Builder.ai needed 700 of them and went bankrupt anyway. This is not a prediction about where AI is heading. It is an observation about what has already happened. The companies that will navigate what comes next are not the ones that asked, how do we replace developers with AI? They are the ones asking the harder question, what does AI change about how software work gets done, and what do we still need humans for? Because right now, after all the layoffs, the frozen hiring, the security reports, the ROI studies, and the bankruptcy filings, the honest answer is the same one the industry did not want to hear at the start. AI did not eliminate developers. It eliminated the illusion that software could run without them. If this changed how you think about what is actually happening in tech, like and subscribe. You wouldn't want to miss the next part of this story.